Hello everyone, we are live, we're back here today for our coaching session. And yesterday we had our first few laps around this track. We got the same track conditions as the coach. We got very close in terms of lap time, like very close. I'm happy with what we've done. But today, like before we go to the coaching session, I decided to do something different. I decided to go to what I think are going to be the track conditions next week because Suzuka is garbage right now. Super hot. I can barely drive around it. I suffered a lot. So I decided to come here back to. Is this working? I decided to come. Where's my glove? I decided to come here back to our beloved track. But in a different type of setting, so we can actually open layers. Okay, so we can go a few laps around it with a warmer track with less grip. I think it's gonna be better. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be faster, but I want to feel the track different from yesterday and challenge ourselves as well. So I'm also putting like more track usage, which makes this less, like you see here, already can't do this corner even like half speed. So we're gonna be around a few laps here with this track temperature. Because I really want to get a good feel for it. The tires are still not there, so it's gonna take us a few laps to get the tires where we want. I feel it's super important on this track, in any track, but like the exercise here is to drive as close to the walls as we can. So like you see, I'm far from the wall. I can use way more wall here. Uh-oh. Too much.
You've got wheel damage.
Louis said,
Hello.
is STP a league race for you or coming up later in the season, or do you just like driving it?
It's the next track. It's tracks for next week. So if you go to the GT4 like Falcon, the open and close setups, you're gonna see this the track for next week. And tonight I have like the coaching session. So yesterday I had the hot laps. Today I'm coming for a few more hot laps, and then we have the coaching session, which is gonna be live streamed as well. But what I'm doing different today is yesterday we got a very good lap, so we can discuss that. But today I want to get the track warmer, because last week we did Suzuka, and I feel this week Suzuka's track is like much hotter, like much warmer. and harder to drive. So I want to feel this car in this type of track with this type of temperature. But yesterday was really the first time I drove here. I just feel like this is an easy track to learn. Or at least was easy for me. Last season, I used to do more like races because I was driving them too.
I gotcha, I just logged off iRacing for the night cause I had 2 abysmal races.
I feel you. Racing the GT4 as well? Or like another car? Oops. Yeah, my Suzuka races were tough as well. Yeah, like you see, no grip. No grip.
Louis said. Nah, 1 TCR fixed where I bottled the start and got taken out lap 2, and 1 PCC where I made the classic blunder of not adding more fuel after quali.
I hate when when I'm racing the open setup that I use the qualify setup and then the race one. I have never been caught like without fuel, but I have like changed the setup with like 10 seconds to go because I realized it. I wish you could set it up all at once, you know? Before the race, like before the qualify, you set up like what you want in terms of setup or like fuel level for each one.
Louis said. Went from 2nd to 19th back to 9th. By the end I was driving GR86.
Not bad though, it's a good recovery. The problem is when like you're driving, you're racing, and there's really, like Suzuka, there's really no overtaking opportunity, very hard. And then you go all the way back because someone hit you or because you had to stop. And then you're stuck like behind a car that's 3 seconds slower just because. Like I feel this track's gonna be that as well.
Louis said. Yeah, it's Oran Park, so I made maybe 3 actual overtakes, the rest was people crashing.
Yeah, Oran Park. I'm trying to remember because I know this one for sure. Oran Park. Okay, it's the one that doesn't exist anymore, right? That has the bridge and stuff, right?
Louis said. Yeah, the weird figure 8 one.
I was happy that they redid the track, like they updated the track. I think it was this season. Because the track doesn't exist anymore. So the only place that exists now is iRacing, which I think it's like kind of a tribute.
Louis said. got demolished and replaced by a block of houses, and honestly there's probably been more overtakes in that housing estate than there ever was on the actual racetrack.
Was it that bad in real life? Is that why they destroyed it? Nobody liked it?
Louis said, I don't know, I never saw an actual race there, I'm just going off my experience in iRacing.
Okay. Well, you said it very confidently, so whatever you'd have said next, I would have bought it.
Just set your fastest lap of the session.
I'm trying to, because I think like the qualify here is going to be super important, and I'm trying to see how fast I can go around this corner here.
You've got damage on the left side. You've got damage on the right side.
That's fine. I can still carry more speed around here for sure. Here I'm thinking about lifting here. I think it was good. Like this last sector I think was good finally. Barely. I think I was significantly faster now in that sector. There's a lot of speed I can carry there. Qualifying here is gonna be so important. So using all the track, like all these things. Decent lap. It was not a bad lap.
That was your fastest lap of the session.
Oh, too late.
Louis said, there used to be a local oval track really near me that closed down, and I wish it got the Oran Park treatment, cause I'm sure it was supposed to be added to iRacing but was never finished.
Where do you live? Maybe the tires are not there yet. I think I can do this flat, like with warmer tires.
It's called Rockingham Motor Speedway, completely unrelated to Rockingham Speedway in America.
Let's see. You said just an oval, right?
Louis said, kart raced there a few times before I was born.
Oh, interesting. They have more layouts, right? Interesting. Because I'm seeing like different things. Oh, that's the Rockingham Speedway. Okay.
Louis
Is that the right
said,
one?
yeah, that's the one.
This one here? This one, yeah, what's that one? Interesting. Not really an oval, but like this shape, I guess. You said like he was destroyed and never made to iRacing. I wanna see the lap. I wanna see how close to the wall we're getting. Right. We don't have to be like touching the wall.
Louis said, it still exists, it's just used for private testing IRC.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, like I heard Coda in Austin. It's gonna continue like being Formula 1 and stuff, but I heard that they're no longer gonna have track days there. They're gonna be like membership only. You see like this here, I have to get like closer here. But I think I knew I missed it. And this first wall here is not important. What's important here is to have a really good like left-hander here. So I can open up and aim like right here. Yeah, like we're going close to the walls. Got the curb there. Close here. Still space. This one is close already though. Yeah, this one's good. This one's good. Close here. Yeah, I think you're using like a good amount of the track, right?
Louis said, that's weird, you'd think with Coda being used in F1 NASCAR and what they try and capitalize on its popularity.
Yeah, I think they made like a private club. So I live in Atlanta. They have Atlanta Motor Speed Park, Motorsports, Motor Speed Park, something like that. AMP, right? Atlanta. And this is like a private track. There's no like official league there, as far as I know, like none of the big ones. It was designed by Tilka, but if you look at it, it's kind of like a private club. That's their thing. So real estate. So they have these townhomes that you can buy them like $600,000-$700,000 in their track side, and they're building more. So they're in the process of selling more actually, and I think they're trying to do something similar to Coda. I think these are sold out. Like I drive through this when I go to the go-karts there. There are go-karts to go like to 65 miles an hour. I did like an endurance race there already. It's fun. It's a nice place, a nice track there. But these ones are selling now. $650. Yeah, and I think if you buy one, you don't have to pay the membership. If you wanna be a member, I think it's $25,000 like for life, $10,000 per year, something like that. And I think they're trying to do something similar with Coda, because they don't have the real stage.
Said,
you have the memberships.
is it a similar idea to that one track that IndyCar used once a few years ago for that awful non-championship round?
Which one? I don't know which one we're talking about. is the one like in Palm Springs. Because if so, then yes. I went to that one. So in 2024, my tires are still not where I want them to be here. So I'm gonna just take it easy on this lap. But in 2024, my wife gave me as a birthday gift the BMW M School one day experience. Yeah, Thermal Club. Yeah, this one.
Lugui. Set.
So
Thermal Club.
the BMW Performance Center in Thermal is like next to it, and we actually drove in that. Like it was a good track to drive, like the cars. But it's the same idea. It was a private club, that BMW, because they probably like paid for some of that, and they do their experiences there as well. We didn't drive there the entire day. It was just like a few laps, but we drove there. I don't want to use the brakes there, to be honest. Okay, there's another like 2/10 if I go. If I'm smart about it.
Lugui. Said. I can't lie, it looked fun to drive, it just didn't work for racing with the iR18's downforce.
Yeah. And I think that's like another thing, right? It depends a lot on the cars we're driving. The problem these days with like Formula 1s, in my opinion, is they got too big. So it's almost impossible to like overtake in most of the tracks. And instead of like fixing, the size of the car, I think you're still
Car
good.
looks fine. No damage to report. You've
Really?
got damage on the left side.
Okay, it's fine. But I think the Formula 1s got too big. That's why they cannot overtake. And instead of like fixing the size, they keep like making up stuff so overtakes easier. But it shouldn't be like easier, in the sense that if you press, like you push a button, that's it. It should, like, the cars are smaller so you can fit more. They have more space. If you compare like Michael Schumacher's car with Verstappen's car, like the early 2000s with the today's cars, it's complete BS. So tires are where we want them to be.
Lugui. Said. Add more electric power, that'll fix racing, quote from the FIA in 2009, 2014 and 2026.
I think the electric power is a different issue. So I think they're going to change directions now. But one of the biggest problems of attracting... So Formula 1 got boring for a long time, right? That's why they sold to Liberty, because they couldn't figure it out anymore. But the problem with Formula 1 is it was too expensive, and it's just getting too expensive for the teams to compete. That's why, like, you don't have Porsche there. Like, Porsche is a reference in every single category they race, right? But why are they not in Formula 1? They're not in Formula 1 because they cannot bring the investments they make there to the real cars. So because of that, because manufacturers, like only the traditional ones, wanted to be in Formula 1, and then had like a bunch of random teams like Force India.
I don't understand why F1 doesn't take the LMH/LMDH approach, where they just say, hey, race your max power, min weight and drag down force coefficient, have at it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I don't know. Maybe they're going that direction. Maybe it's a cost, like, cost efficiency thing as well. Because the more like I think the wider the rules are, the more money teams will have to spend on research, R&D. I think that's their biggest issue. But also because of safety, the cars got huge, massive. But then like you either need a new set of tracks, right? Hey, now to race Formula 1 you need like to be this wide, like much twice as wide. So these guys can really overtake each other and do stuff. Oh damn.
Ludwig said, I also think cutting down the calendar would help a lot with cost.
Yeah, but like the other side of it, sponsorship. So they make a lot of money, those races, right? Each track pays to be on the calendar. That's why sometimes you see tracks leaving. It's because they cannot afford Formula 1 anymore. So if you're a sponsor and you're gonna have your brand exposed like in 22 events a year, you probably pay twice as much as you would if it's just like 11 events a year. Right? And that's kind of the trade-off.
Ludwig said, at least they could streamline the calendar. What's the point in going from Coda down to Mexico down to Brazil just to come back up to the USA for Vegas?
I agree. I agree. I don't quite understand the logistics part. Maybe they think like about, I don't know, I'm just guessing, right? But you have 3 races in the US and you don't want them to compete like with each other maybe. But I think they should have like the what was the garbage one?
You've got damage on the right side.
That's good. Probably the left one. Okay. So I agree. I agree. Like the logistics part doesn't make any sense. Because the European calendar is all together, right? So why don't you start in Asia? Then you make your way like to America. Then you go to Europe and maybe finish there. Uh-oh. Pow! Is it traceable? No, broken. I have to to get an active reset with warmer tires. I was hoping it was just gonna spin.
Ludwig said, start in Australia up to Asia to the Middle East when possible, then to Europe, North America, then finish in South America with the Sao Paulo finale.
Yeah, they used to face, like they finished in São Paulo for a few years, right? And I think that's a nice track. Like I like Interlagos. I don't know if it's because I'm from Brazil or like something else, but I like it. I was gonna say something. And I also like I don't quite like the Middle East races.
Ludwig said, Interlagos is a top 5 track IMO.
I agree. I love it. Whenever I race in races there, I love it. I like this old school racetracks. Sometimes I catch myself watching on YouTube the tracks that died, like Hockenheim and stuff.
Said. I like Bahrain, not really any of the others, but the FIA isn't gonna pass on the money.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like, you don't have to pass on the money. Just get like competitive tracks, you know? Just get things that people enjoy watching. This like ultra long straights with like a section of tight corners, then a couple more long straights. And I appreciate like the diversity of tracks, but that thing is boring. Like, I think tracks should have like an overtake index, right? You get the last 5 years and you see how many true overtakes you had, like, but they have now like so many things that help them overtake. That's BS. They kind of make it impossible for you to defend.
Louis said. That's why I like GT and touring cars so much, lol.
Yeah, I was never into it, to be very honest. My thing has always been Formula 1. But since I started doing like iRacing, I started getting more interested. Last year I went to Petit Le Mans, because I live in Atlanta, and Petit Le Mans like races here, and I absolutely loved it. So this year, I'm planning to go again. Missed the apex there by a lot. Too early. Now if the tires at a better temp, this is not a good angle.
Louis said. I went to the Silverstone Elms race last year and I'm going to the 6 hour there next year too, can't wait.
And it's just such a cool experience. Like before, I don't think I've ever attended to like a real race until last year. The only time I have been like to F1, when I was in college, I used to do the Formula SAE program, and the Brazilian like oil company, Petrobras, they used to sponsor the championship, or like they used to sponsor Williams, and they sponsor the Brazilian GP, and they remember to go later on the brakes, and they used to sponsor our event, so they used to give tickets. Okay, that was flat. We can do it flat, even like with this track. So they used to give tickets to students on Fridays. So I went there 2 years in a row on a Friday. Save. Ah, like if you do this during the race, you're gonna save your car and destroy another 15 cars. I think this is gonna be like a very quiet race on this track. I do feel like we have... No. Gotta go a little bit deeper so I can go a little bit earlier on the gas. In our Discord server, we have a guy from Scotland, I believe. He went to the Silverstone GP this year.
Louis said, just check the iRacing planner and TCRS are here too next. Oh god, my poor SR.
So, for like a road circuit, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think it's as tight. For the league, we raced in Long Beach. Dude, that was not fun. I feel like Long Beach, the track's like half the size. In terms of like width. It's like a very narrow track. That was... I think that's why I'm doing like kind of well here. Is because I got like that experience recently. Okay, there was a lift there. Uh-oh.
Louis said, I feel like Long Beach and St. Pete are similar in how some areas are really tight and others are quite wide.
I'm finding this track to be like wider in general. Like there's a corner. Is that like Long Beach? I think it is. There is a corner that I have to literally stop the car. Like the last hairpin, it's impossible to go around. Like this one here, I think the tightest corner, let's see here. So this is okay. Gonna crash.
You've got wheel damage.
Let's see here.
Louis said, the last hairpin and the fountain are kinda insane.
Yeah, here. Let's see if I can do like a full lap without crashing. This is fine. Like even here, it's fine. Like you can go around it. You can go flat if you nail it. Like this corner, like it is tight, but it's not like crazy tight, right? You don't have to stop the car to park the car or anything. Don't crash. The problem is this one. Like if you crash, then you're done.
You've got wheel damage. Looks like one of your wheels is out of alignment. You'll have less grip out there. We've got
really...
damage on the front end.
No,
Looks like
mid-pole.
your car is towed. You'll need to tow back to pit lane. Press and hold the reset button and we'll come and get you.
Let me take it slow here, because I want to select the entire track now. That's me taking it slower. I just go straight to the wall. But like this corner, is fine. I don't like the curbs here because I feel like in Long Beach you can abuse more the curbs. Here you can't.
Louis said, watching you I'm thinking the track isn't actually that tight and I'm just bad.
I think it's tight here. I think this is the tightest part of the track. Like this one here. Like this is tight, right? And this exit here, if you go too early, like this is tight. It's tight here, but it's a straight. You're like flat. Here's a bit wider already. This corner is somewhat very tight. But like here is pretty good. Even this corner here, they're against the wall. Our coach is gonna be on like any time, so I gotta keep an eye on Discord. Ooh, huge crash. Oh, what a save! What a save! This save definitely deserves a like. Like, if you can't like a save like this, you are a heartless person. Heartless. And now my question to every single one of you: do you have a heart? Prove it. Prove it. And I think it's fine, like, to touch the walls here. This is gonna be a track. What I'm not finding here is overtake opportunities, right? I think trying here is dumb. You're just gonna like lose a lot of speed here.
Said, gonna be very interesting to see how the multi-class aspect transfers to ST Pete cause as far as I know ST Pete has never had a multi-class IRL and yeah that save was incredible. Craig Walter said, I think I lost my heart gambling on lap times.
I thought we recovered everything yesterday. So here might be like a good local overtaking. Right? You come on the inside, because there's a lot of outside here. Or maybe like even if you're on the inside here, you can go tight here. And try to have like this exit. We recovered everything yesterday, man. 17-7. You just have 2 houses now, 0 mortgages. 4 kids, 2 wives. Like, you just doubled your life.
Craig Walter said, I am whole.
You are, man. You are. You are. You are the person who believed in me, even when I didn't believe myself. So I appreciate that. Here's what I think. Like, I think it's a good overtaking. Like, even if I can have to come all the way here, can go on the brake super late.
Louis
I can still make this corner.
said, never mind, apparently Oms raced here from 2007-2009. I didn't even know the track had existed that long.
Me neither. But if you're saying, I believe. It's time! It's time! It's time! There is something about like
leaking fluid.
crashing the car in iRacing that makes it so fun. I don't know what it is. I just don't know. Let's see. Look at that launch.
Craig Walter
Was good.
said,
Decent.
that LL buff out.
Sometimes I don't understand
Louis
what the
said,
next bit says.
according to Wikipedia, it opened in 1985 and the modern layout has been in use since 2003.
Interesting. I think maybe because it got to iRacing last season or like 2 seasons ago, we didn't quite know about it. But you kind of follow like these classes, right? I'm the one who's been following for like much shorter. I want to open my replay here. So as we discuss it.
Good evening, my man. How are you?
Hello, boss. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Yes, good, thank you, brother. Good, thank you. How's your week been here? I was just looking at your laps prior, man. Looks like you've had a bit of a masterclass this week, eh?
Yeah, like I'm. I don't wanna jinx it. I don't wanna jinx it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's great.
we did well yesterday. So starting with Monday, I think my biggest comment is the track we practiced last week. I feel was significantly more grip. Had significantly more
Yeah.
grip than this week's like track, and
Sure. Yes.
I struggled. Like it was a nightmare to race on that track. So honestly, I didn't have any fun in Suzuka this week. Then Tuesday we had a race that was Watkins Glen.
Yeah.
Never raced there before. I'm implementing one of the things that I like about the league is that we don't quite have like a safety rating or like an iRating.
Yes.
Should be challenged
Yes.
there.
You just drive. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm gonna like crash out every single race, but I get more like I get braver, right? I try things that I don't usually try, and it's also a very good opportunity for me to implement the things that we discuss in the sessions, because it's also like a long race. So that was good. That was like I sucked. I was 2 or 3 seconds off pace from everybody else. But I figured out traffic and stuff.
Yep.
And then
Sure.
yesterday I came to this, and when I saw how it looked like, it reminded me of Long Beach, which I drove for the league, or in the league, and that track sucks. Like that track is wall everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But I think it translated well here. So I tried to bring the mindset and think like, this looks like that. So I have to be very close to the walls. So I have one of the first things I tried to do was, what is the closest I can get, right? Let's crash. Let's go into the walls. And also let's see how much of hitting the walls I can do before I get the car damaged. So I can get more like brave during the race. But overall, like, was a good experience. So I did some good laps. Then I went to see your telemetry. I compared. The first thing I noticed when I started my first few laps, my track was warmer because I was just importing from the race. So then I changed, and then I practiced more. I looked at the gaps, and then I could like almost match your time. And then today I came back here, and I got the track warmer as well, because I don't want to suffer as much as I suffered in Suzuka.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, look, it's interesting you've made that comment about the weather, because I am finding that this is happening quite a fair bit, not only in GT4, but especially like in Porsche Cup, for example. I'm noticing the exact same thing. Because obviously, when I go to do testing, like we've always done, I mean, I just load in from the scheduled condition via the UI, right? Just for the particular week, and load in, and off I kind of go. But yeah, it's typically seemed to be a lot more
From
a
Rick
lot
Road
more hotter than what
said,
obviously is particularly scheduled.
Send it,
at
I'm
that
curious
time.
now.
But that's
From
always
Rick
the problem
Road
as well, right? Is that okay? Yeah,
said,
look, like the forecast that it does give you is typically a lot warmer, but then it's never to say that, obviously that forecast weather is clearly quite cold. Well, in comparison, I suppose it's quite cold, but eventually at some point there's going to be sessions that are probably the same as what you have been testing on in that colder condition. But I suppose that ability to be able to kind of adjust and adapt and all the kind of things. That's a big skill in itself, because it always brings me back to that kind of whole topic about the weather and using the coolest conditions to kind of learn. And obviously that's a big part of what I kind of initially start talking to new clients about, is like saying, okay, well, when you are learning, try and allow yourself to learn in obviously the optimal conditions sometimes, to learn where your limitations are, learn where your maximum kind of your maximum kind of edge is for every single type of corner, learn where your deepest braking zone is, because as I've always said, it's a lot easier to bring things back rather than it is to bring things forward, almost in a way. So once you kind of have a limitation point, and once you have a marker that you can be like, hey, look, this is where the deepest point of this particular corner is, or the hardest sort of point that I can attack this corner to get the most time out of it, it makes it much easier to then obviously go and bring it back, for example, if it does get warmer. But yeah, look, Suzuka, to be honest with you, I think it's a really tough track just for, I guess, adapting to conditions, because the hot does really make it feel like it's a lot more of a tougher track to drive. I mean, obviously the BMW's platform is pretty decent, to be honest with you, in terms of balance and stability, and that's honestly why I then made the adjustment for us this week to go back to the Cayman, because the platform on the Ford Mustang was absolutely shocking around here, to be honest with you. I mean, it just felt like every time you picked up the throttle, the rear was just wanting to snap around on you, and I was like, no way Alan's going to enjoy driving this thing this week. So I was like, let's just go back to the Cayman, because it felt so much more planted. But that's what's really interesting about all of these different cars, is like we've said, I think you can see that they all have different needs, they all have different wants, but I think they all do adapt to a lot of different circuits very differently as well, which I suppose, always makes you want to say, oh, okay, well, this car might be better here, or this car might be better there. But yeah, I think the Cayman will be quite strong around here just because of its balance. But yeah, I mean, look, seemingly, you have a really good understanding of this track. I mean, realistically, your time that was on the same conditions as mine was on the 0.013 of a second. So, less than a quarter of a tenth, less than half a tenth, less than a tenth. You were basically identical almost in a way. But it's always very interesting to see, I guess, still where the time was coming and going. And I'm sure you probably saw that in a kind of way of where it was coming and going. But I think that's realistically what it comes down to now, is just saying, okay, well, I'm really, really good in these sequences. But I guess always the biggest thing is that, okay, yeah, we can get the answer, right? We've gotten the answer. But is the way that you're getting the answer something that you feel like is going to work for you every single lap for a 20-25 minute race, for example, right? That's always the thing that you've got to kind of be able to ask yourself. So, do you feel like, in the way, for example, you were getting your laps out of this place, do you feel like they were consistently available for you to reproduce, or did you feel like the edge or the limit that you were trying to find or push was something that, you wouldn't be able to maybe maintain for a consistent period of time throughout a race, for example?
So my fastest lap was like, I pulled a bunny out of the hat. Is that how we say it?
Yeah. Okay.
So sure. I just because the biggest gap that we had before that lap was turn. I want to say turn 3.
Okay.
It's like 2 and 3, right? Because you were going flat, and I was lifting, and I was losing like 3 tenths there because of the lifting.
Okay.
So I was faster around T1, but then I was losing a lot on T3. So I spent legit 10 minutes crashing into the walls just to find a way to go flat there, and I finally did. But I felt like even before I did a 17.7, I was doing 18.2 pretty consistently. I was even with, it was the lift, it was basically the lift, and then I do feel like I can, with more practice. The reason why I'm practicing today with a harder track is I wanted to know as well if I can do flat in these conditions, because you have less grip. So instead of putting 0%, I put 50%. So I'm trying to see how it changes, and I'm finding I can actually go flat there. I haven't been able to successfully do it, but even a 95, 90% lift, I'm able to go around it. So, anyways, I think it's a long way of saying, I was looking at telemetry and trying to replicate. Right now, I do not feel confident I can do a 17.7, 15 laps in a row, but I feel that I can do if it was that track condition, I could have a race at an 18.2 and maybe a qualify lap at 18.0. But I think the
Yeah,
more I
sure.
practice, the better I'll get,
The
and more
better we'll
consistent I'll
get.
get. Yeah, at the lower
Yep,
times.
yep, yep. No, fantastic. And yeah, I mean, interesting to hear your comment about that kind of first little sort of sequence of corners because I think, especially these street circuits, I think a little bit more so than not, a lot of these tracks are all about compensating the gain, right? That's always what I typically find with these tracks. The more that I can kind of compromise, for example, if we, well, to be honest, a lot of the sections we go to are all kind of combined complexes almost in a way, right? I mean, obviously everything is kind of connected by two or three corners realistically back to back to back in a row. So, the biggest thing is that the way that you typically tend to find the most time around a circuit like this is actually feeling like, yeah, you compromise in the first sort of part of the sequence, the gain in the latter part of the sequence really is the way. So for example, like T1, 2, 3, right? I mean, obviously you go through one, you kind of obviously, typically go and compromise through two to be able to go flat out through three, right? But if you kind of, try to carry so much speed through turn two, which obviously then sets you up incorrectly for turn three, then that's obviously where you run into the kind of issues, right? And it's the same with like the middle part of the sequence as well. When you come into like, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, you kind of feel like, yeah, you're trying to really hustle it into, that first part of the corner, and then obviously it puts you off balance for the next part, then it compromises in the next part, and then again, you just feel like you're chasing your tail all the way through. All the way through the lap, really, in the case, and you can just really, really kind of, um, run into a lot of mistakes very quickly. But as we think about that from a point of view as well, I mean, the more that you can kind of feel comfortable in achieving that, the easier it's going to make you kind of feel because obviously, yeah, it just might mean that okay, well, in comparison to let's say like 35 degrees in comparison, like Celsius in comparison, like 42, 43 degrees Celsius track temp, for example, if you kind of do the exact same approach, but just say, okay, well, maybe I need to compromise a little bit more so that I can still get the same answer that I usually would. So you could probably honestly still go flat out through that long right hander. All you've got to just really make sure you do is you give yourself a little bit more compensation earlier, right? And that it's the same concept as what we always talk about with when it gets warmer, you brake earlier. When it gets colder, you can brake a little bit deeper. But you always do the same things, right? So if you're lifting back to, let's say, naturally, consistently, like 50%, let's say, for example, you're always going to lift to 50%, but you might lift 10 meters earlier, for example, right? And all these concepts always stay exactly the same. So I think, to be honest, you'd be able to achieve the same thing. Probably, obviously, at the beginning of the race, it might be a little bit more slippery, so might need to take a little bit more care. Um, but otherwise, typically, it should all be, the same process, the same application, the same everything to get the result. But yeah, I mean, look, the first part of the track and so many areas of the circuit, you are typically faster. But I think I just wanted to kind of get your feeling on what you're feeling on like the brakes and all that sort of stuff like that. Because obviously, the main thing that I noticed was that obviously, you were using a lot more pressure than me in comparison. And last night I went and did, obviously not a GT4 race, but I went and did a production car race in the GR around Oran Park, right? Now, the thing is for me is that the GR, it's all the same, the same concept, right? We're not trying to brake any harder than 65%. Obviously if you get into the ABS, it's simply going to give the tyre that little bit more of a peak sort of temperature. And, you might not feel it straight away, but over a stint, you're typically going to start to feel it. Now, in a multi-class race like production car, obviously you're dealing with the M2s and you're dealing with obviously the Mazdas as well, right? Now the problem is that the M2s are slower than the GRs around there, Oren. So the fact of the matter is that you're basically having to pass all of those cars as you're coming through the field at the beginning of the race because you start behind them at the beginning of the race. Now the thing is, put it on pole, was on pole by 2 tenths, 3.5K off, doing all my stuff, peak pressure 60%, masterclass, all right? Third best lap in the world. I was like, okay, this is fantastic, nice work, right? But the biggest thing is that I tried to continue following that trend in the race, but I couldn't because the problem that was happening was that the BMWs were braking so early, I had to check up, had to brake to 90%. They might have tried to defend or something I didn't expect. It had to brake really, really hard. So they obviously had straight line speed, and someone tries to dive down the inside again, you got to brake really, really hard. And what I was finding was that through my concept that I always explain a lot of the time, I was starting to struggle. I was understeering, I was missing apexes, it was ABSing even more by doing the same sort of things because now the brakes weren't really working as well, the efficiency was reducing, right? So I couldn't really get the same answers anymore in comparison to what I was either in qualifying and at the beginning of the race when I wasn't getting the ABS and destroying my tyres. So the fact of the matter is that the main idea that you always want to have, especially when you are racing, in cars that realistically are all in the same class, in a GR86 fixed race, it would be easy because everybody's the same speed. You could carry your same old thing and it would be a lot easier a job. But whenever you get into the kind of multi-class or, even in this where you have different brands of cars, right? You might have, Porsches, Mercedes, Mustangs, BMWs, etc. Every car's got a little bit of a different quality. Some are better out of the corner, some are better on the straights, right? So the thing is that people might brake earlier, people might brake later. There could be little differences like that transpire through, just that in its own sense. Um, but I suppose the biggest thing is obviously just seeing here from my end and looking in. Obviously, you can see your peak pressures here, right? We're getting up to basically 70 there in turn one. We're getting up to about, again, 67 there coming into turn four. Otherwise, everywhere else is realistically good. But, I mean, are you starting to kind of find yourself, like, if you are breaking that, like, 5 to 6 to 7% harder in a racing situation, are you running into any issues in terms of the tyres in the latter part of the race, or even around here? Do you feel like trying to then go and continue repeating the same lap doesn't it makes it a bit harder for you, or do you feel like that kind of 5-6% isn't really too much of an issue for you in that sort of sense?
So I think it really depends, right?
Yeah,
Because one of the things that I've been like forcing myself to do over the past like few weeks
yeah,
is to learn the concepts and see like how they apply on
yeah,
the track and adapt
yeah,
to the race. So
yes,
it's when you're doing like a hot lap, I feel it's very easy for you to brake early and go around the corner and carry a little bit more speed and try to get like a
yes,
very good lap time out of it. And I feel like when you're in a race that everybody's like back to back, that strategy usually gets offset by whoever's braking later. And those cars they gain a position and they're gonna be super aggressive if they do it.
yes,
And then you have to go on the inside and they might brake early and they might like crash like.
yes,
So I feel
yeah,
like braking the later I can brake during a race, the
yes.
more control I have over the race and the fights. But
Okay, sure.
I I always take care of the ABS. If I feel like I'm getting too much in the
Yes,
ABS, I know like I'm
yes,
leaving time on the table towards the end. And there's also like
yes.
another
Okay,
problem with ABS, which is whenever I'm engaging too much with ABS, I naturally understeer more, like just naturally,
yes,
right?
correct. Yes,
And then it
yes,
defeats the purpose. So if I'm braking
yes,
so late that I'm
yeah,
like really triggering the ABS and I'm completely missing the
yes,
corner, then there's no point.
yes,
So I go back a little bit.
yes,
But I've been
correct.
I've been very careful. Honestly, like in
Yes,
most of the
correct.
races that I've done, I have been
Yeah.
very good at managing tires. Some
Hmm.
races because just the nature they are, like just how much I'm fighting, or I don't have the pace that the car behind me has, and I'm trying to defend. So I
Yeah.
go like a little bit later, more on the inside, and try like just to hug the curb and stuff like that. Maybe those races
Yeah.
towards the end it gets like really really hard to even control the
Okay.
car with the tire degradation. But it's
Mm.
just like I I've came to the conclusion that for me, instead of thinking about what the race is gonna look like in the next like 3 laps,
Yeah.
I try to like, okay, what can I do now?
Adapt.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then like whatever happens later in the race, I'll figure it out. Because sometimes you are saving
Yeah.
tire and someone crashes into you, and like I save tire for
Yep.
nothing, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind
Yeah.
of my
Yeah.
thought process.
Yeah. No, totally, totally. And I think at the end of the day, it's just a guideline, right? To really, the whole concept that we've talked about is really just a guideline. Are we going to be perfect with it all the time? No. Am I perfect with it? Absolutely not, right? So it's very much a case of just like, yeah, you do have to adapt to the situation. You do have to adapt to the moment. But for me, I always typically find, like, obviously doing so many hot laps during the week, I think the biggest thing that I always find is that when I just stick to that kind of guideline as you are as well, it makes my life a lot easier. But I always just typically find, like, if I'm trying to find a lap and get that lap consistently, me aiming for that guideline and being around that kind of, that kind of 60 to 65 area is always going to typically get me the result that I'm wanting. It's just when you're trying to, let's say, be right at the tippy top of your edge, and sort of you find that one time you might be braking to 70, one time you might brake to 65, one time you might brake to 63. It just ever so slightly changes the balance a little bit, right? And it just slightly changes that momentum, I suppose, almost in a way that you carry into the corner as well. And I think that's the biggest thing that I typically find across the board with clients that I work with every single week. probably mainly more so in the GT3s. I notice it probably the most. But you know, when we have this guideline and I watch them in a race, for example, and they're breaking up to, you know, around 73, 74, 75, the next corner they might break the 66 or 68 or whatever it might be, and then that one that they might break the 63. It confuses you as a driver because it really changes your balance, right? It really changes, well, okay, how much entry speed am I carrying? How much minimum speed am I carrying, right? And that's what then always changes the consistencies of what you do, specifically here at St. Petersburg through turn 1, 2, 3, right? If you change the balance of what happens through turn 1, it's going to probably change the feeling that you get through 2 and 3. If you have it, you know, faster in one time, you probably feel slower through 2. If you have it in slower in one time, you probably feel faster through 2. So it kind of just plays with your mind a little bit. So I guess, yeah, it's just about sort of understanding what naturally you find will always feel a little bit more confident for you. If you prefer to be that little bit deeper and be that little bit harder, and you know it's working for you, okay, and you're finding a good balance with it, by all means, right? Because at the end of the day, in this situation, you are faster, right? You typically are, and that's fantastic to see. It's just more so the case of that we got to say, well, you know, in the actual situation, is doing it this way going to help me, you know, I guess, bond with it a lot better and also keep it more consistent? Or would I probably find that, you know, okay, just adjusting to this when I need to, but making sure that as much as I can possible, I'm keeping everything below 65? Would that be better for me almost in a way? So from what I'm hearing from you, I think probably the biggest thing that you would typically find is that you just probably got to maybe adapt to this a little bit more and sort of say, okay, well, my style is probably just going a little bit deeper and going a little bit harder, rather than, to be honest with you, maybe bringing things a little bit earlier and a little bit softer maybe just doesn't work for you as well, almost in a way, right? So do you feel like you're starting to kind of understand as well, or from that topic there, and I guess just looking beyond that, do you feel like you're starting to understand your style of driving as well? Because we all have different styles, right? I have my own style, you have your own style, everybody has their own style. So are you starting to maybe on weeks like this where you get really, really close, are you maybe able to start to see like, okay, maybe my natural style of driving is maybe I like going just that little bit harder into the corner and carrying just a little bit more entry speed to kind of be able to have a bit of a better understanding and a bit of a better balance in the corner? Is that maybe something that you feel like you've been considering or thinking about to any point of perspective?
Yeah, like I've been thinking about that for like a long time, to be honest. Because like when I see our laps, and I see how you approach some corners, I see, for example, you have, and I. So let me break this down into two things. I think one is style, right? Like just, I think I naturally prefer to brake more like inside the corner than like brake super early. But I consistently find that the braking early and less, it's usually faster, just like in general. So I think if I change my braking, if I kind of repeat your pattern, I think I can be faster. One thing that I'm thinking right now that might be limiting is kind of my gear, just like going to that 60% the way I'm going. Maybe it's muscle memory as well, then I just have to practice something else. But I can do that like 1,500,000 laps in a row. When I try to go like a little bit less, I catch myself looking at the percentage and not at the track. So I'm like hitting that number, right? Otherwise, I try to go less and I go a little bit earlier because I'm going less on the brakes, and I'm actually not going as much less as I wanted. So I start realizing, oh shit, I'm too slow, right? When you I feel that when I'm bringing the car in to go around the corner, and I start pointing too much into the inside curb, and now I have to like use the steering wheel to avoid the curb, and not just like the natural speed of the car. So I think that could be one thing. On the style itself, I'm kind of like, I'm kind of finding my style. I'm not sure if it's necessarily, now that I'm thinking, I think that might be the gear, but the way of approaching the corners, of trying to understanding, because there are some corners that I can just naturally carry more speed, and there are corners that I struggle a lot. And it's funny because sometimes I see like your replay, and I'm amazed how much more speed you carry. How can he even control this car? Because I'm already like crying going around this corner, like I'm 10 kilometers an hour like slower than he is. And I'm just like, maybe it's a skill level thing. Not maybe, it's a skill level thing. And for now, I'm going to push and try to be like a kilometer an hour faster, because it's hard for me to control the car at this pace. So if I can have like a slight improvement over a long time, I'll be able to go around this corner and be as fast as he is. So that what I would
Yes.
say my style is. It's kind of that, like understanding my limitations and trying
Okay.
to wherever I can be faster and like be very aggressive, I am, and wherever I
Okay.
can't, I try like to mentally accept that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
live through another corner and try to do my best in the
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, and that's a good way to think about it, without a doubt. I think the biggest way that I kind of put forward to kind of maybe think about, I suppose, in terms of all of this topic is you got to think about variables, right? I mean, everything that we do here is about, I guess, how little the amount of variables that we can kind of create in, an entry of a corner, in a middle of a corner, or an exit of a corner, right? And I think the biggest thing that allows me to do what I do so consistently is that the way that obviously I've started to teach you to drive in this sort of brake earlier, brake softer, it just reduces the amount of variables that some sort of come to the surface almost in a way. I mean, realistically, when you think about it in both perspectives, the variable that you kind of have that only will be offered up by braking earlier and softer is you're probably going to go too deep, right? That's probably the only variable that you're ever going to run into. You might miss the apex, you might miss the corner, right? But again, naturally, as you learn more, you understand, well, where is that point that I need to hit the brakes at to allow that to happen? The problem is that when you start to do a little bit more of a later and a harder braking style, you open up a lot of variables. Either you can brake too late where you miss the corner anyway, you brake too hard that you get into the ABS, you brake too hard to the point that obviously you wash off too much speed in the car, or either you brake too hard to the point that it might just, again, overall, realistically, start to destroy the tyre. So basically, you've got 4 variables versus 1, really, in a way, right? So the way you got to kind of look at it is that, yeah, when we think about consistency, right? If you've got 4 variables laying on the table that are potentially able to happen compared to 1, I'd always go for the one that always is going to give you that 1 variable instead of the 4, right? So obviously for me, then it's down to, okay, well, I've done a lot of tracks at the circuit. I've driven a lot of different cars at the circuit. I know what I'm needing to do at the circuit, right? And that's what allows me to hop on and gain those little bit of differences. Like I can be, X amount of kilometers an hour faster here or there or wherever, right? But in comparison to yourself, again, you're trying to still understand how we're trying to learn and how we're trying to apply that structure. Plus, you're trying to actually apply your knowledge to the circuit and maximize the circuit at the exact same time as well. So you're trying to do like 2 or 3 things at once, where I've realistically done it all before, so it's easy for me to kind of analyze and approach in the right way, right? So I think it's really amazing to see that. I mean, to be honest, I think this is probably the closest that we've ever been to one another, in all fairness. I mean, this is obviously super to see. But I think you've just got to kind of look at it from that perspective of, okay, yeah, look, the lap time is there, and that's obviously incredible because, again, we love getting this close to one another because it shows that everything we're doing is working. But I guess you've always got to kind of think about it from that perspective of, okay, yeah, look, we can get to this lap time, right? But is the way I'm doing it actually going to create variables that will work for me consistently in a racing situation? If the answer is yes, then by all means, go for gold. But if the answer is no, then it's kind of like, okay, well, that's obviously why then maybe we need to try and, continue getting used to that sort of earlier and softer. And that's why I've always put it forward to you, right? Because again, that's the way that you typically can be the fastest. Is it always going to be the fastest area? As you can see, maybe not, right? It's not going to be fastest absolutely everywhere. But is it going to be consistent? Yes. And as I'm sure you learned from your races, being that 1 or 2 tenths maybe slower consistently is always better than being faster, but that 2 tenths maybe 1 or 2 or 3 laps in the race. But every other lap you maybe 4 or 5 tenths slower, right? And that's what it always typically comes down to. So yeah, it's a really interesting conversation in a sense, but can you get where I'm coming from in terms of that kind of variable side of things and I guess how to look at it from that bigger picture in that own perspective as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. And like the other thing that as you're speaking, I'm thinking about is the good thing about having these differences as well, and seeing like sometimes one approach is faster, sometimes the other approach is faster, is that it gives me the at some point in life I won't have you to guide me every single week, and then I need to have those things on my back pocket, like, hey, yeah, I found like this pace using this approach.
Yes.
Let me try now to go earlier and softer and see if this would be like a best approach for this corner. Or I think eventually I will kind of start understanding what types of corners work better for me going like harder on the brakes, or what types of corner work better for me just going like earlier. And having those, having this experience, like in discussing this every week and trying to understand more and more, I think it adds to kind of my toolbox as I grow as a driver.
Yes, yes, 100%. Now, look, I think you just got to kind of think about it from my perspective as well, right? At the end of the day, I don't try what you try in this sort of instance, right? I don't go and give a go of braking later and harder because, again, I am very confident with what I do in the sense of I know exactly how I need to do it and I know exactly what I need to do. So, to be honest with you, I never actually try what you try in this sort of sense where you brake that little bit deeper and you brake that little bit harder, right? Because my mind is so fine tuned to driving in the way that I do it. Now, naturally, probably the more laps I do, I probably could maybe get that a little bit more speed out of it. The more the tire comes in, the more, the car kind of gets comfortable. There's probably a little bit more in it for me in that sense, right? But I'm so confident with that kind of understanding of what I'm doing, I don't even bother giving it a go, right? Now, the difference is obviously you're giving it a try, right? And you're seeing that it's obviously working. But the biggest thing is that obviously I know from my knowledge and my experience and everything that I've taught you that the way that I'm doing it is the only way that's going to allow you to be really consistent and keep that same time really comfortable, consistent, and obviously repetitive for a big period of time, right? And I always experience it every single time that I ever go and do a race. Whenever I start to go above that kind of 65% threshold value, I see that yellow line starting to kick in a little bit. I start to feel like I'm having to crank the steering wheel a little corner more. It all starts to fall down from there,
Yeah.
right? I can still hold position, right? But I'm losing that 2 or 3 tenths a lap that I should have otherwise if I didn't start doing that, right? But again, there's factors that are out of your control and you can't really look after that. But the problem is that once it's already gone and you start to try and you realize and you start to trace back, it's already finished, right? You can't do anything about it. So I guess what I'm just trying to say to you almost in a way here, man, is that there are faster ways, to be honest with you. There probably is faster ways of getting that time out of the car. But as we said right in the beginning of our journey together, there's a difference between driving a car for a race and there's a difference between driving a car for a hot lap, almost in a way, right? And the problem with how, I guess, sim racing works and how the whole kind of market works in terms of, track guides and everything like that, a lot of people always do their laps just to get a lap because that's all they need to do, right? That's how they earn their money. They do a lap, they post it up, no worries, right? But the way that I always drive, you ever see me drive in a Sambo hot laps for you, I'm driving the thing exactly how I'm going to want to drive the thing in the race. And that's one of the most important things to kind of always understand is that this approach is the way that I know that it's going to work to the absolute T in a race. Can you repeat it all the time? No. There's other factors you have to deal with. But to maximize it, you want to be trying to do it in this sort of way. So it's something to really think about. And I guess it is a really sort of interesting concept in the sense of, typically, to actually extract maybe a little bit more lap time, there is actually maybe slightly more efficient way. But the difference is that the way that you're probably doing it probably works best if you have an active reset and you can reset every single time you make a mistake, right? But if you're trying to do 10 laps in a row, you're probably going to start to feel this gives out on you almost in a way, right? And that's just a consistent topic that we've been talking about since week 1 with the BMW at Alden Park Fosters. It really is the case of the ABS is our worst enemy. It always stays the same case even in this. But now the difference is you're getting time out of it, even though sometimes you use a little bit of it. But it's just about saying, well, how can we do it on a sort of longer sort of standpoint of things? So yeah, no, it's really interesting, these types of conversations, because you're really kind of digging in deep to the whole kind of background physics of how everything works. But I think we're really getting to that point now where we're really getting to the main, I guess, almost the sort of introduction to why we're actually doing this whole braking thing. This is kind of like the deepest point to it all. That it's kind of like, okay, you look, there probably is maybe slightly faster ways, but it's the difference of that slightly faster way is only going to work for you for a very, very short time. This way works for you consistently for a whole race, and that's what we're looking for. That's how you be the best, that's how you be consistent, and that's naturally how you get a lap time out of it that you can always achieve, compared to a lap time that you always feel like it's going to have more variables, right? So is that making sense to you there, Alan? Is that quite clear, I guess, what we're trying to put forward there?
Yeah, 100%. Like I remember last season, I don't remember which track it was, but there was a track that I was like very, very close to in terms of time. And
Yeah.
I got like demolished on the race itself. And then I started talking
sure.
about it. I was reflecting after, and it's the same reflection that I have here. Like it humbled me and was very good, because I'm pretty sure if you go back there and spend like half an hour, you're gonna shave off like another second. Like I have zero doubt that you're gonna find,
Sure.
like if you're looking, you're going like you're braking earlier and less, and I'm carrying more speed, which means like in 2 or 3 laps, if that, you're gonna brake even like less hard, just to carry more speed, and you're gonna like get
Yes.
faster than I am like around that corner
Sure.
with more control,
Sure.
right? So
Yeah.
whenever I look at this lap times, I try to get as close as possible to you because that's my reference, right? and I
Yeah.
try like to understand the things, and I 100% like my approach here is,
Yeah.
I think there's like some race approach because of the fights
Hmm.
that are going to be having,
Of
and then
course.
I'll have to be like late on the brakes to defend a position.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
also, when I approach these laps, as you said, I'm approaching them from
Yes.
a hot lap perspective. Like I'm giving my all.
Yes.
Like whenever I sit
Yeah.
here
Absolutely.
to show
Yeah.
something to you, like it has to be
Yeah.
my all.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which
Yeah.
100% agree with you. Can I repeat? And that's the first thing I said. Like, can I repeat the 7-7 or the 17-7? Like, if I do 100 times in a row right now, probably like once or
Yeah.
twice. Like I'll probably
Yeah.
crash
Sure.
more trying to do it than my
Yeah.
pace is gonna be like half a second slower. And that's
Yeah.
kind of my compromise of like braking a little bit less,
Yes.
carrying less speed
Yes.
here, but on the other
Yes.
hand, being safer, right?
Yeah.
This lap I
Yeah.
was watching here in the beginning, or rewatching the
Yeah.
beginning of the session, and I was like
Yeah.
2 inches from the wall in every single
Yeah.
like exit and every single entry. Do I want to be that
Yeah.
close like in a race? Maybe not. Like maybe
Yeah.
in a race I'm gonna like just have a little bit more space because I have another car that I have to be looking in the mirror, something happening in front of me, someone spinning. So those are the things that I think add to everything that I just said.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's, great to hear that you kind of reflect on that in that way. And that's the thing, right? I mean, everything that you and I do every single week is all about reflection, and I think obviously having that conversation about each other of like what is more stuff that we can obviously talk about, but rather than just looking at telemetry, it's this stuff like this, right? And I think this obviously is some of the most critical and most important things, because I think every week we come here, I think, the main goal for you is to try and get into my head. What am I thinking? And at the end of the day, I think that's sometimes the most important thing. And I kind of sit here and I think to myself, okay, well, what do I actually think when I get onto the track? I don't think of anything, to be honest with you. But why? Because I've already kind of gone through this process of thinking of everything that I'm explaining to you here. This is all what goes on in my head, but I just don't really think about it. It's all kind of already there, it's already available, it does it automatically. I don't need to think about it, it just happens. But actually kind of diving in deep and thinking about my own mental approach towards everything here, this is what I've actually developed over the years. This is why for me to get to where I wanted to be, it took me 3 years instead of taking 6 months, because who would ever think about something like this, I suppose, right? It doesn't really, when you think of race cars, you think about going as fast as you can and as quick as you can. That's it. You don't really think about, well, how do I look after a tire? How do I maintain that speed? How do I stay consistent? No one thinks about that really in a way, right? But when you're trying to be the best, those are the things that you've got to kind of think about. And every single professional sim racing driver or real life race car driver has the exact same thing on that sort of level. It's just the difference is that, let's say someone in Formula One, for example, Max Verstappen, he's got about 50 guys that sit there and overview his telemetry and talk to him about something, right? But in the sim, realistically, you've only got one person to give you that kind of feedback on. So for them, obviously they have their idea, they have their approach, but they have people that literally get paid to sit there and analyze what they do and give feedback, really is the case. Just like obviously what I do in a way, but obviously, yeah, they've got 50 different minds working on the exact same thing, giving a different answer and giving a different approach and what an adjustment might need to do to get a result, So it's very much a case of they do it on a really, really high scale, and that's why they're the best drivers in the world, because they have people that literally study degrees to improve this stuff and to improve them as a driver as well, and they get paid really good money to do so. So I think it's really, really interesting to look at that from that approach. But yeah, look, it's something to think about and something to consider for you going forward. Just keep it in the back of your mind when you do come into weeks like this where we do get really, really close. And again, I'm over the moon in joy to see that you've kind of gotten this close to me, because again, this is the stuff that we've been dreaming of since the beginning, really getting this close. But I think the biggest thing that I'm just wanting to put into your perspective is obviously, yeah, you see that you get really close to me in the practice, right? When we go to the race, you kind of sort of feel like, yeah, sometimes you can have a really good week, and then sometimes you might find that things adjust, right? Conditions change, weather gets worse, stuff like that adjusts, and you kind of feel like that sort of level of sort of speed that you had doesn't fade away, but it's not exactly where that you want it to be. And this is the reason why, because the way that you're basically sometimes approaching might work in a particular condition, but it won't work in all. The way that I'm sort of explaining to you here is this what works in everything, right? This is always going to work in every single condition, no matter what it is. And I can just easily make a quick adjustment of braking a little bit earlier, a little bit softer, but I always know that my level of braking is going to be okay, right? Because again, the problem is, you brake to 70% when it's 10 degrees warmer, call it a day, right? ABS is going to kick in a lot more aggressively, tires are going to heat up a lot more aggressively, it's just going to fall away from you a lot quicker than you can even say boo, almost in a way, right? Whereas the way I do it, in 35 degrees or 45 degrees, same thing happens for me. I don't really get any effect, right? So that's the whole reason behind it. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind as we continue working forward together. And I think it's a really big concept to obviously overview and reflect on, because realistically that's probably the biggest step for us going forward now, is actually allowing yourself to do what you're doing, but seeing it from that perspective of, okay, I can extract a lap time out of doing it this way, but can I keep it consistent? That's always the biggest thing you got to think about. And consistency is our best friend in anything that you do. That's always going to be the thing that wins you races, and consistency. Outright speed doesn't win you races. Consistency wins you races, almost in a way, right? I mean, in my situation yesterday, I didn't win the race. I ended up coming second. I got caught up with BMWs. I had the pace. Pace was there. But unfortunately, once that 1.8 second gap was there, had a little bit of damage. It held at 1.4, 1.4, 1.4, 1.4. Didn't change. But the consistency kept me in the fight. If I didn't have that consistency, I would have gone 1.4, 1.8, 2.2,
Yeah.
2.2, 2.4, right? And you just keep on falling back. But the consistency kept me in the fight. All it took was one issue with him with the BMW, and I would have been straight back into it. But it never prevailed, right? But again, it just sort of makes you reflect and say, look, I could have done that better. Should have done that better. I probably would have won the race if that wasn't the case, because the consistency was there. So that's the biggest thing. And I guess, do you find in your races as well, I guess the consistency that you already do have in your pocket helps you out quite a lot, I guess, not even to just stay in position, but to keep on moving forward, I suppose, as well?
Yeah, like when I was driving the M2, I felt that I got to a very good point where I was very consistent during the races, and like I would be turning laps like within the same tenth, like five, six laps, right, or 1/10 up and down. In the GT4, I'm still building towards that, I think. So some races I'm very consistent, and people even say in the chat like you're being super consistent with time. Some races I'm not. I feel like it's harder to be consistent when you have multi-class. So when you have like because in reality, I don't know like what the LMP2 drivers they have in their mind. Like it doesn't feel like they have a lot, because they always choose like the worst places ever to try to overtake. They don't like think twice. And in the league, I'm the faster class, and I'm doing the dumb stuff, right? I'm the one like, okay, I'm not gonna lose time behind this Mazda for 3 corners, so I'm just gonna go here. And I think all these things end up costing you time. What I've been trying to do more like that's most like in the league, and also some in the multi-class here in just like the open setup, is manage traffic without losing as much time. And what I've found recently is when I do it well, I end up like, even if I'm slower than the car ahead of me in terms of raw pace or like just average lap time, I get closer because I'm losing little time, like little to no time every single time managing traffic. But yeah, I 100% agree with you in terms of consistency. And in this car, I'm not as consistent as I want to be, or like as I was in M2, but I also think it's part of the learning curve.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, I think, the biggest thing is realistically, man, I think it's all of those little things that you learn. And again, multi-class for you is new, and it's something that you're still developing and still getting used to. Again, the problem that we're dealing with every week, Alan, is like, we're learning so many things on the fly, but one of the biggest things that you're always learning, both, as of previous weeks, BMW, new car, but every week you're learning a new track, so you're trying to play catch up on everybody else around you every single time that you turn up to a new week, so you have to be really impressed with the level of skill and performance and just results that you get, to be honest with you, because I mean, working with so many clients over the years, I mean, and even myself, obviously knowing how long it can actually take to learn and get really quick at a track, to be able to do that realistically in less than 50 laps is great, is really, really great. And, obviously that pound of time probably extends to maybe 2 hours, but, there's times that I've been, even still to this day, it still takes me 2 hours sometimes to learn a circuit. Like, for example, the most recent Qualcomm one that came out at the start of this season, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I mean, it was like 26 corners on a street circuit, and I just was forgetting every single corner that I was coming to. And that's me. So to feel like you come to street circuits like this at St. Pete, it's not an easy circuit. It's got a lot of sort of tight, sort of complex corners to it. But again, realistically, you can make it seem really hard, but when you look at it from a bigger picture, all you really got to know is that you're just doing the same thing that we talk about every single week, and you get the result. So, like, for example, just looking here, 7 and 9, right? That's where you're losing the most time. I mean, I look at this straight away and I see exactly what's going on in terms of where your time is disappearing here. it's that right there.
Mm-hmm.
Is in the case, right? Instead of kind of peaking and releasing, you done your squeeze, right? Now I know why you would have done the squeeze. It's because there's a kink here, right? And obviously with that kink, you would have kind of felt like, okay, well, we're not exactly breaking in a straight line here, are we? So obviously I would want to like maybe squeeze into a little bit around the kink, and then obviously get to my peak later in the corner, compensate for obviously that little bit of a turning radius sort of point that we have at the start. But the problem is that realistically, when you do think about that corner, in a way, you kind of are just driving straight. It's really so you're just driving straight all the way out there, out to that outside part of the corner almost in a way. So you're not really necessarily actually kind of, well, you are pivoting, but you're not exactly turning almost in a way. So you just kind of want to stay consistent with what you're sort of doing there. So when you look at a spot like that, is that kind of what your mind thinks of when you go into there? Are you doing a squeeze, obviously, to just try and, based on the corner, what the corner is doing? Is that why you may be approaching in that manner?
Yeah, like you just nailed it. Like I don't have to, because I think there's like a piece of it which is like I start braking, because what happens there, like you start braking before you see the corner, right? Because there's like
Yeah.
a wall
Yeah.
there,
Yeah,
and
that's yeah.
I'm not like finding the right initial brake pressure. So when
Yeah.
I pass that, I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna miss the corner. So I go for the
Yeah.
squeeze
Yeah.
to like make sure I slow down the car, and I point the
Yeah.
car in the right direction.
Yeah.
But when I
Yeah.
was looking at this corner, I'm like a car length like away from the inside wall, which is definitely
Yes.
costing me time as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So it's both from the inside wall, and I think actually also from the outside wall as well, almost in a way, because you can see that there is a little bit of a gap right there between you and I. Not much, but just a bit over half a meter, really, is in a way. So 0.66 of a meter. Um, so what that probably says to me is that typically you're probably having to almost put a little bit more degrees of steering angle into the car. Um, obviously to get the car to where you want it to be. So that's probably what almost does prompt the squeeze. Whereas by me almost getting right up close to the inside wall, but getting right up close to the outside wall, it actually makes that corner a little bit more of a straight line for me, almost in a way, right? So the more of a straight line it is for me, it just kind of feels like any other corner that I'm dealing with. It's just, you get to your peak, you just sort of hold, and then obviously you release as you obviously turn in. Obviously, depending on the corner we're dealing with, of course, but realistically, it's all just the same idea. But as we talked about before, right? Compensate the gain. The problem is there's no compensation for you here. You're carrying a lot more entry speed in comparison to me. Obviously, you trail off at the same point, get on the power release at the same point. But then, obviously, we know how it works in this situation, right? We know that if you start the corner off slightly different, then all your timing's slightly different. Then maybe when you get back on the throttle is slightly different. How much throttle you put on is different. When you let off is different. When you jump on the brakes again, it just, turns it an up, down, up, down. And you can see up the top, obviously the difference that we have in comparison to each other in terms of a, obviously a speed trap difference, right? You're faster, then you're slower, then you're faster, then you're slower, then you're faster, then you're slower, etc., right? And then you obviously know how that works in terms of that time. You just lose 2/10 before you can click your fingers. But, realistically, in a sense, other than that, basically, right? Of course, naturally, it flows into 9. That's just naturally how it goes. 10 was really good, to be honest with you. I mean, half 10. But again, it's that situation of here. You've actually done really, really well because you've just found a way to break later, but you've kept it below 65. So you've just masterclassed a lot more, to be honest with you, right? But obviously the biggest thing is that there's obviously a reason why I'm braking early and braking so soft, right? Because again, I'm only losing 300ths of a second here in comparison to you, but you can just imagine the efficiency that I'm going to have in terms of tire life in this sort of situation, right? But it all relates back to what we talked about before. You're probably going to be a little bit safer doing it in the way that you're doing it in a race. You're probably going to be a little bit more consistent if you're driving by yourself, doing it in the way that I'm doing it, almost in a way, right? So that's the way that you've just kind of got to depict all of this. I mean, obviously, again, we're sitting here trying to develop based on a driving style, a driving technique, right? That's what we're trying to really improve. How to get the most out of a lap time around one sort of lap, right? Now, again, like I said, every way that I drive, I always drive based on if I'm driving in a race, right? That's the only time that the only way that I'm ever going to produce laps for you is if I'm doing it in a race. If I wanted to go and get a hot lap out of this, I could send it, right? But I know that wouldn't be realistic, really, in a way. It wouldn't be realistic. I'd do it once and that would be it, right? But that's a bad habit to get into. I don't ever want to feel like I get to that point. So I only ever drive in that sense. So if I was driving in a race, that's how I do it. So I kind of got to think about tyre life, first time gained. Tyre life, 10 out of 10 to me. Tyre life obviously probably isn't going to be as good in the long run for yourself. But the difference is probably going to be the 0.032 is it's like, well, if there's a guy right up your butt, you're probably going to do what you're doing. If you're by yourself, you're probably always going to do what I'm doing, really, in a case, right? So just try and, yeah, like I said, think about it all in that situation where we're literally just looking at, okay, well, what am I doing? How am I doing it? Why am I doing it? And just sort of getting your answer from it. And I think that's something that we've always talked about, your what's, whys, and hows, right? If you can always have an answer to all of those kind of things for every single corner, it really allows you to maximize the sort of sequence, right? And I think you've got a really good sort of understanding of that, and it shows in the way that you drive. It shows that you have a good understanding of what you're doing, but I think it's just more so about really trying to really trying to kind of maximize all those things and have an understanding in that sort of manner, in every sort of which way and roundabouts as well. So yeah, are you starting to see it from that different perspective now? I don't think we've ever really put it forward in this sort of sense, but I think when we are so close like this, it's really interesting to see, I guess, how we both get our answers. But you've always got to kind of think about it from that different approach. So are you seeing that from that different side of things now, where you've literally got, yeah, like you can do it in terms of like really driving it, hustling into a corner for a racing situation, but in the long run, obviously doing it in my way is going to be a little bit better. So you're starting to see it from that different side of things now, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, like and also I'm looking here. If you look, like I carry more speed in the entry of the corner, but like on the exit, you're carrying more speed. The only reason I'm not
Yeah,
losing more time is because it's very
yeah,
short. Like it's a very short straight there, right? Then you have like the kings to the
yeah,
right side, you lift, and it goes to the left. But if it
yeah,
was right before a long straight, that like 0.32 would become like something like half a tenth towards your lap time. So that's also like
yeah.
a good way for me to connect the dots here.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to look at it, because yeah, I think when you can think about it in that kind of capacity, I think it's really going to allow you to maximize all those little things in the best way that you can. And I think, yeah, from a driving perspective, just really really get, I guess, a different perspective on both driving in a racing situation and driving in a qualifying situation. That can always be really helpful when you think about it in that manner and that capacity there. So no, something to think about otherwise. But yeah, these last two corners, right? Obviously, again, you just explained it perfectly. You did get a slower exit out, right? So already that's costing you all the way into here, almost in a way, right? And what's really interesting about this all, Alan, is that if we actually look at lap time up until this point, you're actually faster than me up until this point right now, right? You're actually over a tenth faster than me throughout the entirety of the lap, still at this point right now. Without that 2/10 negative, you'd be 4/10 faster than me right now. Nearly 4/10 faster than me, which is crazy to obviously think and absolutely incredible. But you can see that literally because of that corner, because you went in deeper, right? Although it looked really good, you can see, okay, watch this time now. Losing. Right? Now, again, now you double down. You're losing and you lift off earlier. So guess what happens? You're losing, keep on losing, go into the next corner, keep on losing, and guess what? It flows back over to my side, and by the time we end the lap, the difference between one another is that 0.013 that we've got all the way over there, basically, in a way, right? So these last two corners, realistically, are kind of what is costing you. Really see the difference between being faster and not being faster. But I guess the difference is just the confidence, right? I mean, obviously coming into the left-hander, it's just the confidence of feeling like you can attack that a lot more aggressively. And then obviously because you do naturally lift off early, it comes back down to that whole domino effect that we always talk about. You lift off that little bit earlier, then because you lift off early, you'll be carrying less speed. So what do? You get a more heavier, then you get a more heavier there. So what do? Of course, you carry it for a little bit longer, so you brake a little bit later because in your mind you're going a bit slower. So you brake a bit later, you brake at the right pressure, but then you have that adjustment there, right? Because now you're carrying more speed because you naturally broke a little bit later. So you have to try to compensate for that, and then obviously naturally you kind of ended up getting there or thereabouts the same spot when we exited the corner, and that allowed you to kind of catch up as we were going. But it's all those little kind of differentials through the middle part of the sequence that is unfortunately costing us in terms of what we're really trying to look at, right? So we're talking about like the smallest of differences, but again, it's all this kind of big topic we talked about here today. But as well, I think naturally it's just track confidence, to be honest with you. I mean, the more laps you do, you're going to feel more confident. But I guess seeing it and hearing it from this perspective, it just shows you that obviously you've seen it, but in this kind of perspective, it shows you that, okay, well, if I just make sure into like this last little sequence, if I go a little bit deeper into the first part of the sequence, it's going to allow me to then obviously break a bit earlier for the last part and just maybe get a little bit of a better result. Whereas obviously now because of what we did through the previous corner. You followed into the previous corner, you double down, and then you lose out. So does that make sense? I guess for that little sequence there, is that maybe a complex that maybe you felt like you didn't really have, I guess, maximum confidence as of yet, still trying to build that up, or do you think it's just honestly just the timing was a little bit off from what you maybe were trying to do?
Yeah, no, after I saw it, I don't know, like, because I don't think I had many fast laps yesterday after I locked in the fast lap. I
Okay.
did
Yeah.
today, but I was trying to lift later, as you
Okay.
are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you like attacking the curb on?
Yes. Very
You
much.
are.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it unsettles the car a lot. So
It does.
what I was doing, like I was avoiding that curb like at all costs. That's why I'm lifting earlier. So I go very very
Yes. Okay.
close to it, but it's still with the car planted. And because I'm doing that, I'm going all the way to the right side, right?
Right.
And what I have to do is I go to the right side, then I point my car back to the left, and that's when I start braking. So when I start braking,
Right,
I'm
okay.
actually going away from the corner, and that's why you see that extra squeeze at the end. It's just like as I'm
Okay.
turning in the car, I need that extra squeeze to make the car point harder to the exit,
Right.
so I can go on the
Okay.
gas. Like it's working
Right.
well for the
Yeah.
exit, but on the entry,
Yes.
I'm gonna try to just like fly on that curb and see if I can hold the car because you're carrying so much more speed than I am.
Yeah. So mine's completely different. So yeah, I as you've seen, I launch the curb, and I keep it straight. Really isn't the case, right? So wherever the car lands, I just keep it dead straight. So I launch the curb, the car flies over the curb, it lands, wherever it lands, I brake in a straight line, hairpin, off I go, right? Whereas you're obviously trying to make a valiant effort to kind of, obviously, like you said, avoid the curb, right? And then obviously, yeah, pivot, yeah, you're trying to pivot back to the left to obviously open up the corner. But you never actually want to open up the corner, you just kind of keep it on the right-hand side, and you just keep it nice and tight, let the car wash in, do kind of that double apex almost in a way that you're trying to achieve, and then obviously wrap it around and power on out of the exit of the corner, right? And that's really the biggest thing. So once again, that there is probably just track knowledge and again track confidence that's probably making that difference for you right there. And again, it seems like your track confidence is growing, really, really well at the beginning of the circuit, almost in a way, which in my opinion, I feel like is probably, probably harder than it is to understand and get confidence with this part of the circuit. So to see that you're kind of understanding that area really well is obviously fantastic. Because yeah, I mean, just briefly looking at the start of the track, I mean, yeah, again, it's just one of those situations. The timing is different, right? So the timing's worked a lot better for you here, and again, you've been able to extract a little bit better. But again, it's just always that case of, is it going to be a consistent sort of value for you to always kind of hit? And then obviously your 3, you keep it. Yeah, I think I crack. Well, obviously that's just from that exit there, so that's on the cable. We both keep it flat, and then your 4 to 6. Again, it's just that little bit of timing difference that in this particular situation worked okay for you, but it's always like, can you keep it consistent? That's always what it comes down to. So you can see that really, yeah, all of these corners at the moment, at least, you've got that later and harder kind of driving approach, which makes you obviously wash off more speed. You can get on the power more aggressively, right? That's how a lot of your corners are looking, obviously, at the moment in terms of your sequences. Obviously, it works really well through these sections. It doesn't exactly work very well through the following one, but obviously that was mainly because of the way we were getting into the brakes. But otherwise, I think we just got to kind of think about that whole concept that we talked about today and see if you can get the same or similar results, I suppose, in a sense, from doing it in a more earlier and softer manner. Because if you can try and get more comfortable in doing it in that way, it's really, really, really going to help you in the long run of what you're trying to do, right? So it's just something to kind of keep in mind and keep knowledgeable about when you think about it from that manner, and just think about it in that sense, right? So yeah, I mean, does that give you a complete different perspective on maybe the way you were thinking about this lap, or I think just in general, just the driving style that we're trying to kind of achieve and what we're trying to actually apply in terms of, I guess, that direction forward with these cars in particular?
Yeah, I want to say like a complete like different perspective. I think it's what like we've been discussing, right, over the
Yeah,
past several
yeah,
weeks, and just like that
mm,
consistency coming from your side is also good for like to ground me and remind me what we do, why we do the things the way we do,
yeah,
and
yeah,
just like
yeah,
for me is staying humble and understanding that sometimes I'm being faster because I'm getting like a faster entry and because it's a short
yeah,
exit, it's working,
yeah,
but
yeah,
then like as I said in the beginning, it's just having that as a toolbox. Like whenever whenever it's a very short straight after this, I might better off just like going crazy on the brakes and holding it. But like at your point, if it's like a 15-minute stint, do I want to get that hard on the brakes? Maybe not. Maybe I should be more cautious. There was one question that I had for you though, like,
Yes, please.
and we haven't discussed yet, but one of the things that we have to be careful or like have to watch on these cars, the GT4s way more than BMWs, is the tire temp at the beginning of the race, right? It's like a rolling start. And I've tried to weave the car, and what I find is I slowly lose temperature when I do that, but I usually have my front tires warmer than my rear tires. And then I see myself going like for 2 or 3 laps, just trying to nurse the tires, and sometimes I lose positions that I cannot gain back later. But at least I finish the race, right? But recently, I don't know why I tried it, but I tried it, and really like going on the throttle and like hitting the brakes and just like engaging the ABS to get the start temp. It's way like significantly more effective, and it hits up the tires, all the tires at the same rate. So if I was starting the race with the tires at like 176, 175 sometimes, now I'm starting them like at 183, 184, which is like much better. It's what I get like after 1.5 laps. I was wondering if doing that during the warm-up lap would have the same like downside effects as just like engaging the ABS in every single corner has, or if that should be fine. Like, what's your experience?
So yeah, obviously like you said, heating the rear tires up is a really hard topic, obviously, to discuss, because it's obviously like, how do you do it? You know, how do you really heat the tires up, especially when you have a car that has traction control and all that sort of stuff, right? So obviously, yeah, heating the front tires up is always a pretty easy task, but we've always got to kind of remember back to why we do everything, right? And why we do everything in the way that we do it, right? Now, realistically, the reason why is, like we always used to say, and like we still do say, the best way that the tire racing tire works is when the core temperature is at a really cool level and the surface temperature is a really hot level, right? So what obviously is the main deterrent of increasing core temperature? Brakes. So naturally, the reason why that your tire temperature increases quite a lot is because of the brake pressure that you're putting in to obviously keep that core up, and obviously then get the surface into a working temperature that obviously naturally the whole tire just generally heats up. But the problem is that way of doing it actually, like you said, it does cause you issues later down the road, right? So the way that you actually want to do it is that you will want to avoid using your brakes. Really isn't the case, right? You want to avoid actually using the brakes to warm the tires. But what you actually want to do is, as of recently, I suppose, the way that everybody at a really high level is warming tires up, is you basically want to feel like you're drifting, almost in a way, really is in a way, right? You're kind of like skidding the tire really aggressively, really aggressively weaving the tire. But actually something that I've figured out as of most recently is the curbs. Weaving on the curbs, for some reason, heats up surface temperature, somehow, right? I don't know how they've developed that, but going onto curbs and weaving on top of the curbs actually generates track temperature. So wherever you kind of see a curb, for example, it has to be 3D though, right? That's the thing, it has to be 3D. So whenever you go over 3D curb and you weave on it, it actually heats up the surface. But realistically, in a way, the way that you want to do it is, yeah, you kind of weave the left and right, and that's what actually heats up the surface. Because realistically, you're not actually heating up the core, because again, you're not using the brakes. You're just skidding the surface of the tire, right? So you're not actually generating heat in the core, you're just heating up the surface, and that's what we want, right? So I would probably venture away from using the brakes and braking really hard. That would be something you would do in real life, right? I would do that in real life in my situation if I would be to be driving that sense. That's always what I did. But in the sim, for what we're obviously trying to achieve, I wouldn't get anywhere near it, to be honest with you, because yeah, it heats up the tires initially, but again, it basically serves the same purpose of why we don't brake over 60%, pretty much, in a way, to be honest with you. So yeah, no, it's an interesting topic for sure, but I think definitely, yeah, just try and maybe do a little bit more aggressive weaving. Don't try to really use the brakes very aggressively. You can obviously just need to dab the brakes to slow the car down slightly, obviously, you know, when you are weaving in the pack there. But yeah, do very aggressive weaving. And again, if you see any curves, kind of just like weave left and right over the curbs, because that seems to be what really just heats up tires really well now. But yeah, just very aggressive weaving. That's what I found works. But yeah, no brakes. Basically wanted to steer clear of the brakes, pretty much, in a way. Because yeah, that just propels our issue that we've been dealing with for the last 3 months, really, in a way, when you use the brakes, basically. So yeah.
Okay, okay. I'll try
Yeah,
like you also gave me an idea. I'm gonna try to turn off like the traction control during the warm up lap and see like if I can get
Yeah.
some extra
Yeah.
on the rear
Yeah.
tires.
Yeah. Obviously, one thing I will mention quickly is that obviously in fixed you can't turn it off, right? So obviously TC you can't turn off in the fixed. But what you can do is in controls, if you type in toggle traction control, there's basically a toggle traction control button, and if you have that blinded, and if you click that for about 3 seconds, it turns traction control off, really simple way, right? And even in the fixed, it turns it off. So what you can basically do is you spam it pretty much in a way, and it obviously keeps on turning it off pretty much in a way. So you can basically have TC off even when you're in fixed. It was actually a trick that a lot of us GT drivers were doing for a time to get out of the corners, right? Because obviously in fixed you can't change the TC. So what we would do, getting back on throttle, you tap the button, we'll turn the TC off, and you get a really good exit, right? So it's it's a little trick that I've learnt with the TC. But yeah, it should be available in the GT4s, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it was just a GT3 thing, but it should be a button that's called toggle traction control there in the controls that you can bind. And yeah, you can obviously just click it and it'll turn the TC off for 2 or 3 seconds, I think, and yeah, that'll be helpful. So yeah, give that one a try as well, and if that can work for you. But yeah, no, look, give that all a go there, Alan, and obviously yeah, we'll see what we're looking at. But yeah, it should be a good week here at St. Pete. So I'm looking to see how we get on there when we catch up next week. But yeah, give it all a go and see how you get on.
Perfect. All right. I'll let you know how that goes. Thanks a lot.
Yep. You're welcome. No worries. You have a good week, and yeah, any questions, you just let me know. All right.
Perfect. Will do, man.
All right, man. Have a good night. I'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye bye.
Thanks, on. See you, man. Bye. Bye.
Always a very good conversation. Always a very good conversation. I like I talked to him like a few weeks ago, not a few weeks ago, like maybe 2 weeks ago, about like not necessarily just reading the telemetry because I can do that myself. Like I got to a point that I can do that myself, but really understanding the things underneath, like the root cause and stuff. And I think we're going a very good direction. I'm trying to find here the ABS, brake bias, fuel. So button 9. Which one's button 9? So this is button 20. Is it? No, this is. Okay, let me see which one is button 9. Okay, so that's 30. I have so many buttons. I just don't know like which one button 9 is. 19, 18, 4, 5, 7, 6, 3, 2, 1, 0, 20. You know what? Maybe we want to use this one. Oh no, I cannot use this one. Oh, that's definitely not it. Oh, 9 and 8. Oh, maybe that was this here. Ah, gotcha. So this was this. This is 8. Actually, this doesn't work though. Anyways, I'm gonna try. How can I try this? Let me see here. No save. Let's go. Let me see here. Let's see if I can just turn off traction control for a second. No, it's not working. So that's what he was talking about. Like, really weaving the tires. But it's like it's quite a workout. It's annoying. Can you imagine doing this for a full lap? Like the front tires, they get something. Like they're not getting anybody, but like at a race pace or like warm up lap pace, kind of this. I almost broke my thumb. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, that's what he's doing there. Alright, so that's it for today. I think we did good. I think the session was good. And tomorrow, Friday, I'll be back here. More races. Let's go back to Suzuka. Try to get a good race there with everything we know now. Around like 8:30 p.m., 9:30 p.m. We'll see. Stay tuned and I'll talk to you guys.